his real role from doing the problem is doing children. Right? That's his role.
Good morning.
How are you?
Not all.
Good, we missed you.
It's something like a rule.
Thank you very much.
You want it?
Okay. Okay, we have copies everyone has? Okay. What's this? Okay. All right, so first, before we begin, so the big shkoyach to the Yom sponsor for this morning's breakfast, Shvili Nishmas, Rabbi Melech ben Eliezer Lipa, and Rabbi Nachman Mendel ben Rabbi Yosef, and it should be schus for us from Shaiva and Moshe. Okay. Okay, so let's learn a little bit Hilchos Pesach. I'll be Penimiyus. So, you know, every yontif, obviously, it goes without saying that every yontif, by its very definition, has to have a date to it. It has to come out at a specific time. You know, so Rosh Hashanah is Aleph Tishrei, and Sukkot is the 15th of Tishrei, and Chanukah is Chafei Kislev. But there's something unique. So Pesach is no different than that. Pesach also is the 15th of Nisan. That's when Pesach begins. But the relationship, that's what we're going to be learning this morning for a few minutes. The relationship between Pesach, the yontif of Pesach, and the month that it's in is unique. There's no question about it that there's no question about it that, again, every month has a certain identity, and there's no question that it's connected to the yontif that it's in, but the relationship between Pesach and the month of Nisan is unique itself. So let's begin to learn both in halacha, and then we'll see in Penimiyus the kesher between Pesach and how Pesach is redefined as it being a yontif coming from the month of Nisan. You'll see what I mean. So we'll begin like this. Marmukah number one is the first siman in Hilchos Pesach, Tavchav Tes. So Seif Beis. This siman in Shulchan Aruch is talking about not the halachas of Pesach yet, but it's talking about the halachas of Chodesh Nisan. And so the Shulchan Aruch, the first line is the Shulchan Aruch, and then there's the Ramah. So the Shulchan Aruch records the following halacha: Ein noiflin al pneiim b'kol Chodesh Nisan. That what's unique to the month of Nisan is, besides the yontif of Pesach, the month of Nisan is unique, that there's no tachnun throughout the whole month of Nisan. Ve'inoyim tzidchascha b'Shabbos b'mincha. And following that, therefore, we also don't say tzidchascha by Shabbos b'mincha, right? The rule is that, you know, if it's a day that, if it was during the week, you would not say tachnun, you don't say tzidchascha either. So the whole month of Nisan, there's no tachnun, there's no tzidkascha. Ve'im haspidim boy, there's no hespedim lolein if there's a petira, so there's no hesped as well. So the whole month of Nisan, again, no tachnun, no tzidkascha, no hesped. The Shulchan Aruch then continues that even fasting is not so simple. Fasting during the month of Nisan as well. So the whole month of Nisan is different. It has a certain yontif element to it. Okay. Then the Ramah continues. The main part of the Ramah in that Shulchan Aruch is really talking about the halacha of fasting in the month of Nisan, which is not the topic for now. But the Ramah ends off the siman with the following sentence: V'noyegin laharbis ksas ba'achilu shasiyah b'yoyim achar chag v'u isru chag. Says the Ramah, also you should know that the day after Pesach is called isru chag, and the minig is to have a little suda, to have a little bit more than usual simcha and achilu and shasiyah and isru chag. That's how the Ramah ends off the siman. Now this is a pella. What's the inyan of isru chag? Isru chag, so the makar of the idea of there being such an inyan of the day after Yontif being called isru chag is from a Gemara in Sukkah. Marmukah number 2 is the Gemara in Sukkah Mem Hey and the Beis. The Gemara says like this: Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah Mishum Rab Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Yirmiyah said the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Kol ha'isa isur l'chag ba'achilu shasiyah. Anyone that makes an extension on Yontif with eating and drinking, in other words, Yontif ends, but you extend Yontif by a little bit, to a certain degree, extend it by another day, with increased eating and drinking and Simcha. So Malav Akasav Kilabana Mizbech Vikal over carbon. So it's a chashuv thing, and it's as if, said Rishon Baruch, it's as if you built the Mizbech and brought a sacrifice. Shenemar, say it in Halal, Isru Chag Ba'avoisim Ad Karnas HaMizbech. That by making an extension on Yontif, Isru Chag, by making an extension on Yontif, so it's as if Ad Karnas HaMizbech, it's as if you're building and you're serving Hashem with the corners of the Mizbech. In other words, as if you're bringing a carbon. In other words, this is the Makar, and this is the only Makar in Chazal for the concept of being an Isru Chag. In other words, what's the idea of Isru Chag? It's an extension on Yontif. The word Isru Chag means that, an extension on Yontif. So where would the halachas of Isru Chag be? If I was the Ramah and I'm recording somewhere in Shulchan Aruch the concept that the day after Yontif, you should be Marbe B'Achilu Shasi, you should make an extension on Yontif. Where would I put that? In the Simon talking about the month of Nisan. I would put that at the end of, after you talk about the Yontif of Pesach, then there should be a Simon talking about the halachas following the Yontif of Pesach, which, by the way, we do anyway. There is a Simon of Shulchan Aruch talking about what happens to Chametz after Pesach. How do you deal with Chametz after Pesach? I think over there it will be appropriate to then mention the concept of Isru Chag. But what does the Ramah do? The Ramah talks about this idea of Isru Chag, of the idea of there being an extension of Yontif, in what? In the Simon of Shulchan Aruch that's talking about the month of Nisan. What does one do with the other? The month of Nisan, okay, we don't say Tachnan, there's no Tzidkascha, there's no Hespedim, you don't fast. And says the Ramah, by the way, there's a concept that's called an Isru Chag. Well, what's the Ramah talking about? Why is this concept of Isru Chag appropriate in the Simon of Shulchan Aruch that's talking about the general month of Nisan? Again, like I said, I think it would be more appropriate to talk about after you go through all the halachas of Pesach, then you mention, by the way, there's such an idea of extending Pesach. What the Ramah is hinting to is that the very idea of the month of Nisan being a month where there's no Tachnan, and a month where there's no Tzidkascha, and a month that there's no Hespedim, that's not a Nisan de Ke'enyan, and happens to be there's also Yontif of Pesach. The concept of the entire month of Nisan being a Yontif, being a month within which there's no Tachnan, and so on, that's the idea of that is an Isru Chagdik idea. The idea is that there's an extension, there's an expansion of Pesach, that although we think of Pesach as falling out on a certain date, the 15th of Nisan, for 7-8 days, okay, and that's the month of Pesach, that's the Yontif of Pesach. Happens to be, it's in, obviously, if it's in time, it has to fall out on some month. But no. The entire month of Nisan is a Pesach Dik Yontif. It's a Pesach Dik Yontif. And that's why, we'll see in a second, more details, but that's why there's some level of celebration on the entire month of Nisan. There's no Tachna, there's no Tzidkasna, and so on. Not because necessarily there's something unique to Nisan, because that's an expansion of Pesach. Pesach is a month-long Yontif to some degree. Says the Ramah, and the makar of such an idea, the root of such a concept of Yontif being able to be expanded, is the concept of Isru Chag. So the concept of Isru Chag is appropriate in this Simon of Shulchan Aruch, because this entire Simon of Shulchan Aruch is talking about what? That the entire month of Nisan is somehow different than every other month, right? And so Manishtana HaChodesh Hazeh, from all other months, what's unique to Nisan? So says the Ramah, we have to figure out exactly, again, the exact understanding of this. But the Ramah is at least opening the sugya by telling to us that the concept is going to be revolving around an Isru Chagdika concept, that it's an expansion of Pesach. The Pesach should not be seen just as an isolated 8 days within a month. It's the entire month of Nisan that's somehow expressing itself most strongly in those 8 days. But it's an entire month. Pesach is a yontif that's the entire month. It's a Chodesh Nisan Dik yontif. Where do we see this idea of a yontif being expanded beyond its borders of its specific days? Okay, Isru Chag. So Isru Chag and this idea of the entire month of Nisan being a yontif are one and the same. It's one idea.
Isn't it interesting? Isn't it similar to Purim, where we say call it Chodesh Kosher?
Yeah, exactly. That's why there's we connect Purim and Pesach very, very much. Exactly. So they both can have this quality of there being in a month-long connection. So let's investigate a little bit more this idea of Pesach being the aspect of Pesach that allows it to be a month-long yontif. That's what we have to see. Obviously, we don't eat matzah all month, right? And we don't read the Haggadah all month. So we have to identify more detailed, more specifically, what aspect of Pesach is able to be seen as a month-long yontif. That's going to be the question. Okay. So if you take a look at Marmukah number 3, the Mishnah Berurah, on the Shulchan Aruch that said that the whole month of Nisan we don't say Tachnun. So the Mishnah Berurah records the source and the technical explanation of why we don't say Tachnun the whole month of Nisan. And let's understand with a more optimistic lens, when we identify this Nakuda that the Mishnah Berurah is going to be quoting for us as why we don't say Tachnun the whole month of Nisan, that's going to be the Nakuda of Pesach that's able to be Isru Chag, that's able to be expanded throughout the whole month. So says the Mishnah Berurah like this. Again, he's not making this up on his own. This goes back to Rishonim that the Beis Yosef quotes. But anyway, the Mishnah Berurah says like this. Why is the month of Nisan no Tachnun? Why is it all Pesachdik? So he says because if you break down the month of Pesach, the month of Nisan, most of the days of Nisan are days that there's some level of celebration. How so? So for the first 12 days of Nisan, we know that the 12 Nisim, by the times of the Mishkan, they brought special karbanis, each day, for the inauguration of the Mishkan, right? The Mishkan was established, was built, was erected. The inauguration was Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The following 12 days, you have the 12 Nisim bringing their karbanis. So that's a celebration. So the first 12 days of Nisan is somewhat of a yontif because of that. The Chol Yimei HaKarban HaYontif Shalai, and every day a carbon was brought was ready yontif. So that's the first 12 days is yontif dik. Erev Pesach also, that's Erev Pesach. You bring the carbon Pesach, that's also a yontif. Made Pesach, the Pesach itself is obviously a yontif. The Isru Chag, the idea of Isru Chag from the Gemara in Sukkah, that's also an extension of Pesach. Im Kain, so if you have the 12 days of the Nisim, you have Erev Pesach, you have Pesach, you have Isru Chag, Yotza Roiv HaChodesh B'Kedusha. So most of Nisan is already yontif dik. Most of Nisan is Yantif Bik. Leficha Oisin HaKol Kaidish. The whole Yantif, Rubai Kekuloi. So the whole Yantif is Yantif Dik. Now, the Achronim asked the following question. If you think about it, you can make a very similar cheshbon for Tishrei. Tishrei also. It's a famous question that Achronim asked. Tishrei also. You have Rosh Hashanah, 2 days. You have Yom Kippur. You have all the Shabbosim in Tishrei. You have Sukkot. When you count all the days that you don't say Tachnun in the month of Tishrei, you also have most of the month. So, but yet, we don't just forget Tachnun all of Tishrei. So why do we say, Roiv of Nisan, most of Nisan, there's no Tachnun, it's the whole month no Tachnun, but we don't do that by any of them, we don't do that by Tishrei. So the answer is, again, going back to what I said before, is that these days that the Mishnah Berurah is pointing to as days that we don't say Tachnun anyway, namely Pesach and its surrounding days, Erev Pesach, Isru Chag Pesach, and the 12 days of the Nisim, that their karbonis were brought in the inauguration of the Mishkan, those are not isolated incidents. There's a nakuda of Pesach that somehow is unified, that somehow is bridging those two experiences. And so, in Tishrei, you have Rosh Hashanah, you have Yom Kippur, you have Sukkot, you have Shabbos. These are isolated Yom Tovim. But when it comes to the month of Nisan, the Chanukas HaMishkan, the inauguration of the Mishkan, and Pesach, those are not separate events. Those are considered to be unified events. Not only that, when we're able to then hone in on the Nakuda that unifies Pesach with the Nisim and the Chanukas HaMishkan that took place in the first 12 days, that's going to be the Nakuda of Pesach that somehow is able to help us understand how Pesach is a Nisan Dekiyantiv. Again, like we said before, the whole Indian, this entire idea of the month of Nisan being a month of celebration is an Isru Chagdik idea. It's an idea that there's some element of Pesach that's bigger than just its particular days. It's the entire month. And so the question that we're trying to deal with is, okay, so what Nakuda of Pesach is that idea? What aspect is it the matzah? I mean, what aspect of Pesach is able to be seen as a month-long celebration? So the answer is some element of Pesach that unites Pesach with Chanukas HaMishkan. Because Chanukas HaMishkan and Pesach, those are the two events that contain most of the month of Pesach, most of the month of Nisan. So there's some Nakuda that unites those two experiences that's going to be the aspect of Pesach that should be seen as a Nisan Dekiyantiv. So what is that? So if you take a look at Marmukah number 4, I hope you're following. Yeah, we're going with the Cheshbon. Okay. So Marmukah number 4. So there's a concept of the Ramban. We all know that the Ramban wrote a commentary to Chumash, but what's very interesting is that before each Sefer, he writes an introduction. So the Hakdama of the Ramban in Sefer Shamayim, there's a paragraph, he writes the following thing. The Ramban over there tells us that the whole Sefer Shmos is the whole book of Shmos. It's about Gula, it's about Yetzias Mitzrayim, it's a Pesach Dik Sefer. But the Ramban makes an observation, but 1 second. The first part of Shmos is Pesach Dik, right? So Shmos, Ve'er, Boy, Shalach, okay. And then even Yisrael, fine, so it's Yetzias Mitzrayim is to receive the Torah. But then all of a sudden we have this whole thing talking about the Mishkan. What does the Mishkan have to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim? So it says the Ramban like this: Hine Hagolus Einenu Nishlam. You should know, says the Ramban, Golus Mitzrayim and Golus Bechlal is not finished. Ad Yoim Shuvam El Mekaimam Vel Milas Avoisam Yeshuva. Says the Ramban, real Gula is not finished, not complete when we just leave Mitzrayim. Real Gula is complete when we can say that we've returned to the status of our Avos. That's what the Ramban says. What does it mean to return to the status of our Avos? He says like this: so when we left Mitzrayim, so even though we're not slaves anymore, we would still be considered in Galus. First of all, we're not in our country; we're in the desert, right? We're lost in the desert. So when can you truly say we've left Galus? It says like this: when we came to our Sinai, and we built the Mishkan. The Shava Kadosh Baruch Hu v'Hishu Shechinasa b'neihem, and the Rebbeinu Shloim, rests His presence upon us. Oz Shavu U'Mailas Havaisim. Then that's the moment with the Mishkan we can say, we're back to the Avos. We're back to the Madrig of the Avos. How so? So this is the Ramban, very mysterious words. Shal Yasoid Aloika Al Ahaleim. What does it mean, the mile of the Avos, that Yetzias Mitzrayim is not complete until you recapture that? The mile of the Avos is the Rebbeinu Shloim dwelling on their homes. Everyone knows the famous Rashi, right? Chazal say that when Yitzchak Avinu married Rivka, and Rivka went back into the oil, the tent of Sarah, right? So the Asherah Shechina came back, right? And the Shabbos candles always were lit, right? There was a cloud over the tent, and the challah was always fresh, right? That's Chazal say those three things. And that, says the Ramban, that's not a random thing. That is the mile of the Avos. The mile of the Avos is that they had a home, and there was Asherah Shechina in the home. That's the inyan of the Avos. So says the Ramban, what the full Geula of Pesach is not leaving Mitzrayim. The full Geula of Pesach is to be able to recapture that Nakuda of the Rebbeinu Shalom's presence being in the home. And on a national level, that took place when we built the Mishkan. The Mishkan is a national home, and the Rebbeinu Shalom dwelling in that home, that's called the Jewish people recapturing the Mile of the Avos. That's Pesach. That's really the Nakuda of Pesach. So he says, "Vehemim hamerkava." That's what it means when the Avos are being redefined as the merkava, the chariot, and as Hashem is residing upon them. Oz nechshav v'gula, and that's when they're defined as redeemed. Just 1 second. So let's explain. So in other words, so says the Ramban is pointing to us to the Nekuda Penimiyus, the inner definition of truly what Yetzias Mitzrayim means. It doesn't mean to leave Mitzrayim per se. It doesn't even mean makis. It means to be zeicha to this madrega, that the Rebbeinu Shloim resides over your home. That's what Pesach means. And therefore, on a national level, this took place not only with leaving Mitzrayim, and by the way, that's why if you think about it, even in Mitzrayim, there's a big theme of the home, right? Makas B'charis took place, right? What was Makas B'charis? Every other Makas is like, okay, nothing with the houses, it was Dam Tzvardeya, B'chulu. But Makas B'charis was unique. L'yetzim Pesach Pesach, stay in your home, put blood on the doorpost, the house of the Jewish people. The Korban Pesach had to be eaten in the home. If you took the Korban Pesach out of the home that it was designated to be eaten in, it would become puzzle. So the whole inyan of Pesach is very much bound to the home itself. The whole leading up to Pesach, to beer chametz and to get rid of chametz from the home. B'dikas chametz, we go from room to room. It's very home oriented. Why? Because says the Ramban, we have to explain this, but says the Ramban, because this is the Nekuda Penimiyus of Pesach. The Nekuda Penimiyus of Pesach is not leaving Mitzrayim. The Nekuda Penimiyus of Pesach is Hashras Hashchin on the home being a place for Elikos. That's the Nekuda of Pesach. That's true individually, and that's true collectively, historically, by building the Mishkan. So let's go back. So the month of Nisan, says the Mishnah Berurah, is unique. Is that the month of Nisan, most of the month of Nisan is Pesach. How is it Pesach Day? Well, obviously you have Pesach itself. And you also have the 12 days of celebrating the Mishkan. What does the Mishkan have to do with Pesach? The answer is, says the Ramban, that's exactly what Pesach is. The Penimiyus of Pesach is the home of the Jewish people being a place for Hashras HaShechina. That's individually, every home experiences that, but collectively that was the Mishkan. So this is so now let's begin we're going to begin now to understand. So what we've identified are two things. We've identified for ourselves the Nakuda Penimiyus of Pesach that is able that from that Nakuda Pesach has to be seen as a Nisan Dika Yontif. That's the Nakuda. You can look at Pesach as a Yontif of just leaving Mitzrayim, and then that has nothing to do with the month of Nisan per se. You can look at Pesach as just a time that we celebrate Hashgacha Pratis. That's not Nisan per se. But the Nakuda of Pesach that redefines it as not just days that fall out of Nisan, but rather it's a Nisan Dika celebration. That's this Nakuda, that Pesach is a Yontif that celebrates Hashras HaShechinah in the Jewish home. And when it's a home Dika Yontif, then we see it as a Yontif that's the entire month of Nisan Dik. And that's why? Because the entire month of Nisan has this quality that's Pesach, and also the building of the Mishkan. So it's that Nakuda of Pesach, which is Mishkandik, building the home, that is able to sort of be expanded and see itself as a month-long celebration. So that's the Nakuda. Now this idea, by the way, of there's a question? Yeah.
It says Amud Kaimim. So Eretz Yisrael is not a part of the whole ingredients.
It is interesting, by the way. It is interesting that in the Haggadah, there's command no mention of Eretz Yisrael. Command no mention of Eretz Yisrael. Although it's ironic because the entire Haggadah is really revolving in Eretz Yisrael with Bikurim, right? We use Arami Ravi as a launching pad for the Haggadah, and that is talking about Eretz Yisrael, but we never identified. So it, like I said, there's no pshat to the Haggadah. You know, it's all side Jewish and Remez. There's no pshat. So yeah, the Shana Yerushalayim Hashtach. We do reference it, but it's not. You would think it'll be more highlighted. It's a pella. It's okay. We'll talk about that one day too. But that's a unique thing, though. By the way, going a little bit deeper and connecting now. Okay, so fine. That's what we have so far. Now let's go a little bit further. Let's define for ourselves a little bit more clearly. What does this mean? What does it mean? Hashras HaShechinah on the home. Like what is this significance? That's number one. We have to define for ourselves what that means. Number one, and number two. Why is it this Nakuda that makes Pesach a month-oriented Yontif? Those are the two questions. What does this mean exactly, Hashras HaShechinah on the home? What's unique about it? And why is that the point that makes Pesach more of a month-long Yontif, as opposed to just being a particular day that falls on a month? So take a look at Marmok number 5. This is the Zar Kaddish, Chelik Gimel Reish Nun Aleph Amud Beis. So this is going to give us a little bit of a window into the sugya of what does it mean exactly, Pesach being defined as a yontif that's Hashras HaShechinah on the home. Like what's significant about that? I understand that it's good to have Hashem's presence, but what's unique to have Hashem's presence in the home? Like what is the definition of that? What does it mean a home in Yiddishkeit, in Penimiyus? So take a look at the Zohar. Amai Yiskriyas Matzah. It's interesting. The Zohar asks a very interesting question. Why is it called matzah? Okay, matzah means matzah. Why is it called matzah? What does the word matzah mean? Elohachi tanina. So the Zohar says like this. This is the tradition we have. Begin the kamishadid umavareches the kol sitrin bishin vavi ketatabuhu kegavda de mezuzah the mavareches l'shedin umazikin de tara. Zohar Kodesh has an interesting thing that when you eat matzah on Pesach, matzah is similar to a mezuzah. What does a mezuzah do on a Jewish home? Again, similar to the house, right? What is a mezuzah about? So Chazal say, the Zohar Kodesh is saying that a mezuzah is about protecting the home. It's interesting. A mezuzah is about war. It's about conflict. But instead of it chas v'shalom being conflict in the home, what the mezuzah does is that it creates conflict with negative forces that might be trying to enter the home. So mezuzah, what the mezuzah is about, Machlokes. It's about conflict. But again, the conflict that the mezuzah, the war that the mezuzah is taking is going into is not chas v'shalom a war in the home. It's fighting a war to protect the home from outside forces. Says the Zohar Kaddish. Similarly, that's what matzah does as well. Matzah also is about conflict. Matzah is about difference. Matzah is about machlokes. But somehow, in some way, as we'll see, matzah represents a machlokes, division, separation, conflict in the home, but still shalom bayistik. So mezuzah and matzah, says the Zohar Kodesh, are related to each other. They're both about conflict. Mezuzah is about conflict outside the home, and it's fighting negative forces to keep them outside the door. And matzah is a very deep thing. Matzah means to have conflict, and for there to be such a thing as machlokes, but we'll call machlokes Leshem Shamayim, in the home, and yet somehow, not only does that machlokes in the home break down shalom bayis chas shalom, it actually increases shalom bayis. So it says the Zohar Kodesh like this. Begin to komeshadin mavarechas kol sitrin bishin vavekatot and so on. That's what here. Take a look at the last line in Marmukah number 5. We'll go with this. V'avid merivo katata. So matzah, similar to mezuzah, makes conflict. It makes machlokes. Kamad at omar, similar to the pasuk masa umeriva. So masa umeriva is the name. It's it's not necessarily a nice place to visit. Masa umeriva. Maybe there's a Pesach program there these days. I don't know. Masa umeriva. Masam Riva is the place where the hitting of the rock took place. Masam Riva, so it's not necessarily a nice place. The word Masa Umariva means conflict. It means machlokes and conflict. The word Masa, says the Zohar Kodesh, is similar to the word Matzah. So the word Matzah is a Leshem machlokes. It's a Leshem machlokes. So one second. So now we're being thrown a huge curveball. One second. Until now we've been talking about that Pesach, the Nekuda Penimiyus of Pesach, is going to be about the Rebbeinu Shalom dwelling in a home. And whenever we think of a home and Hashem's presence in the home, we usually think of it means shalom, it means achdas, it means like everything's gevaldik. That's shalom bayis. All of a sudden it says Zohar Kodesh, yeah, but you know what matzah is? Matzah is having machlokes in the home. So, one second, how in the world can that be? If Pesach means Rebbeinu Shalom dwelling in the home, and usually for Hashem to dwell in the home means shalom bayis, so how could matzah be the ingredient to that? And matzah means difference. Matzah means machlokes. Matzah mariva. So what's going on over here? Okay. So take a look at Marmukah number 6, and this will be able to explain everything. It says this is a piece from Likutei Moharan, Tinyana Beis Vav. Rabbi Nachman is talking about what real achdus means. This is going to be true on a very basic level, but then it's true on a deeper level as well. Hisgalus achdus hapashut. Rabbi Nachman says that real achdus is not when everything is the same. Real achdus, we'll see it inside in a moment. Real achdus means, a real yichud means when davka things are different, but despite the differences, or maybe sometimes even because of the differences, you are forced to find a nekuda pnimis that unites all the different elements. And somehow through that nekuda pnimis that unites all the different elements, you're able to come to a much deeper connection. That's called real achdus. So everyone knows, right? We came to Kriyas Yamsuf, right? So Kriyas Yamsuf, the sea splits, right? And we walked through. According to Chazal, the sea it wasn't just like one big dome or one big doorway, all places went into. There was shvilim, there were paths for each shevet. According to some Chazal, there was a path even for each family. According to some Chazal, mamash for each individual person. Why the separation over there? The whole Yitzis Mitzrayim is achdus, right? Why? You think about it. Pesach is a yontif where there's a certain level of division in Klal Yisrael, right? You eat gebrachs, you don't eat gebrachs, right? You eat rice, you don't eat rice. You don't mix, you do mix. You eat mishpach, everyone has their own seder. Even people that have like communal seders, there's like, they want to have their own seder sometimes, What is this in? And the answer is, the real secret of achdus is not that everyone is the same. The real secret of achdus is people are different. People are different, and things are different. And there's complexity in life, and nuance in life, and conflict even, but not in a bad way, but differences. But nevertheless, you're able to somehow find in the nekuda pnimis, find some unifying oneness that incorporates all those differences, and then guess what? Then you've come to a much deeper achdus. In other words, if everyone looks the same, if you imagine like everyone just looked the same, then of course there'd be achdus. But the achdus would be superficial. The achdus would be skin deep, because the source of that unity would be the fact that everyone has the same nose. There's the same nose. We're all friends now, right? It's like about like little kids, right? Little kids, in school, they have a lot of best friends, right? Why? Because you like lollipops? Oh, I like lollipops too. It's gewaldig. Mamish b'achdus. That's an achdus, but it's a skin deep achdus. It's not a real achdus. But when you have people that are different, right? And despite the differences, you're able to realize, one second, you want this, I want that, but we all ultimately want the same thing. We're just trying to, go about it in different ways or to try to bring out different aspects of what we want. But when you find the Nekudat Penimiyus and you're able to make one out of things that seem to be on the outside different, that's called Achdus. Then you found the true oneness. Says Rabbi Nachman like this: His Galus Achdus HaPashut, the revelation of a true unifying Achdus that comes out of things that on the outside seem to be different from each other. That you should know this is a rare nekuda, even by the Rebbeinu Shalom. This is rare, and it's a chashuv thing by the Rebbeinu Shalom. So he says an amazing thing. We know in halacha there's a klal yochid v'rabim is halacha kerabim, right? It's machlokes yochid against the rabbim. We go with the rabbim. Why? Because the rabbim are smarter. We assume that they're more correct. No, elu ve'elu l'kim chai. So what's shall we go with the rabbim? Because what does it mean a rabbim? A rabbim means you have many rabbis, right? And each rabbi has his own real opinion, right? So it's so really every rabbi should have his own shita, right? So what happened over here? But you have a rabbim that you have so many chachamim that agree on one nekuda. Whoa, that's a real achdus. That's a real achdus because you're talking about people that have dayas, that have their own shitas, and they should have their own shitas. And despite the fact that these people are so powerful within themselves, and they're still able to find the Nekudat Penimiyus that unites all of them, that's a chashuv zach. That's a real yichud. That's a real achdus. So yochid v'rabim, halacha kerabim, because through the rabbim, because of the fact that they're pieces, that they're fragments, and they're different from each other. And with all of that, Afal Pikin, they're able to find a Nekuda that unifies all of them. That's a real Achdus. That's a chashuv thing. That's so chashuv, even God is like nispal from that. So Allah Gerabim. Says Rabbi Nachman like this: when you have so many people that are so pulled different from each other, and nevertheless they're able to come to one Nekuda, to one Shita, to one Yisaid. So then from something that was fragmented, that was in a million pieces, like all these different rabbis, and they're able to come together, so what you've done is, you've discovered a unity that is made of different parts. A unity that's made of different parts is a much deeper unity than a unity that just is one. So what we're being introduced to is that we want to define for ourselves, what does it mean, Achdus? What does it mean? What is the type of environment that we can say this is a true reflection of Echad? The answer is dafka, an environment that's made of different parts, and afal pikin, or because it's made of different parts, it's able to somehow be unified. When you take something that's fundamentally, a puzzle pieces, and you're somehow able to bring them together, that's a real yichud. That's a real achdus. What does it mean a home? What does it mean a home? What's the definition of a home? So take a look at Marmuk number 7. This is a Gavaldi Mashal, one of the big tzaddikim of the generation, Rav Avram Kluger. So he's he's in America now, I think. Yeah, he is, okay. So he's in Beit Shemesh. He's a Mainam is Gav, Mamish. So one of the most amazing things, one of the most beautiful things in his Svarim, he has many Svarim, is the Mashalim that he gives. He has a fantastic way of bringing a point across in tangible terms. Listen to what he writes. This is from one of his Svarim, B'nai B'char Yisrael. So he says the following mashal. He's not talking about this topic in particular, but he gives a mashal of a home. And he says the following: Noisif oid mashal. Let's give a mashal. Mitzura shal b'nias cheder. Let's say you're building a home. You're building a room, right? A home doesn't have to be many rooms. You're building a room, a cheder. So he says like this. So so if you think about it, this is really what a room is, what a house is. Sheyesh es nekudas hamerka. So you have a certain point in space, right, that you want to live. So this is the spot that you want to live. Shesham daram b'nei abayis. That's where the family is going to live. Umisham. Now they need to be protected from the elements, right? So you have to have walls. So what it is umisham marchikin esakar is that. So if you can imagine, it's like this is the spot we want to live. Okay, so fine. So you put walls around this spot, but now it's a little bit tight, right? So what do is you move the walls out. So he says an amazing thing. When you're moving the walls out, right? We all understand. You move the walls out, you're making a bigger home, right? But if you were like a Martian or like not used to this, you would be saying, 1 second, you're making such machlokes. Because until now, all the walls were in the same spot. Now you're making a Mizrach wall, and you're making a Ma'ariv wall, and you're making a Tzafan wall, and you're making a Darim wall. You're making such division. Don't you want a home to be a place of Achdus? So you're going to make a home a place of Achdus and of unity, and it's going to be built from walls that are so far from each other? And what is the Balba is saying, no, I want the walls to be far. I want to have a big home. I want the walls to be far from each other. They say, what are you talking about? That's making machlokes. Shaita. So he says like this. That's not machlokes. He says is when you move the walls out from each other. So your bechitzayin is so superficial without thinking too much about it. You'll say shakir's merchagim zemizeh. The walls are separate from each other. The cholkim zemizeh, and they're disagreeing with each other. This wall is saying we should be mizrachdik, and this wall saying no, we should be ma'rivdik. How can you build a home like that? How can you build a home like that? Achbam is adarab. But the answer is the shaita. It's the exact opposite. Al yidei zeh, through the walls becoming different from each other, this becoming mizrachdik and this becoming ma'rivdik. Yigdal yoiser chadash v'em. So the room is getting bigger. It's becoming more able to be lived in, right? Mash'enkin amaya kirs b'shalom. Right? But if all the walls were just ba'achtos and shalom, and you're like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to be mizrachdik. I'm not going to be ma'rivdik. We're all just going to be right here. You can't live. That's not a room. That's not a house. There's no room that you can't fit. The Yidbukul tells us they're all going to be attached to each other. That's not a home. Then you can't. That's not a room to live in. But here's the point. But here's the nakuda. The only way how this apparent machlokes between the walls can actually produce shalom bias is what? Is when they're moving away from each other, with a cheshbon, in accordance with each other. If this was going that way, this was that way, then it's not going to work. But if they're all moving away from each other in tandem, on the same page for the same purpose, then that's going to work. Then adrabah, that's the biggest shalom. So here's the nakuda. What does it mean a house? A house means differences. A house means this room is the dining room, and this is the bathroom, and this is the kitchen. They're different from each other, and they're supposed to be different from each other. And this kli is different than this kli. But what defines a home is that davka, because it's different, and still you're able to put it together under one roof and surrounded by different walls, and they're able to now be unified as this is, mishpachas Goldstein, and this is where the family lives and resides and lives b'shalom v'achdos. That's called real achdos. Real achdos is not when everything is the same. Real achdos is when things are different, but they're all working together to come to a common goal, to reveal something that unifies all of them. That's real achdos. So let's go deeper. So he said. So it says the Zohar Kodesh. What's matzah? Matzah is similar to mezuzah, but whereas mezuzah is machlokes outside the home. In other words, keeping things that are destructive outside them. That's what mezuzah is, right? It's like you shall, these things are not allowed to enter. That's what mezuzah means. So it's fighting against those negative forces. It says the Zohar Kodesh, matzah is also fighting, but it's not fighting outside. It's actually fighting inside. Fighting inside. That's what you want. The answer is, doesn't mean fighting. It's machlokes Leshem Shamayim. It means differences, but differences that are still somehow unified together, without any yeshus, without any ego in place, right? Everyone knows that one of the basic symbolisms of matzah versus chametz is humility versus ego, right? That really have the same ingredients. But all of a sudden, chametz thinks of itself as so much bigger than matzah, right? Really, it has the same ingredients. The answer is because chametz means ego, and matzah means no ego. You want, in order for these different pieces to remain different pieces, but still somehow be unified. And through that, the unity that's revealed is much deeper than just a vanilla, everyone has the same nose. That comes when a person is able to remove one's ego. Because when there's ego involved, then the Mizrach wall says Mizrach is the right way to do it. And the Ma'ariv wall said, no, what are you talking about? Ma'ariv is the way to do it. Then already that's the Machlokes Leshem Shamayim. But it's Machlokes Leshem Shamayim. That's why the Rosh Tevis, how does it go? The Rabbi Nachman writes in a few places. He says that the Rosh Tevis of Moshe is emes v'serasei emes, right? There's no machlokes. There's no Torah's Moshe is a Torah of Yichud. The Rosh Tevis Moshe is machlokes Shamayim, right? Machlokes Shamayim. Rabbi Nachman says because that's the greatest Yichud when it's able to express itself when you have a Shammai over here and Hill over there, and they're not bending to each other. It's not the Pshat they're bending to each other. Mizrach is over here, Merzul, they're not bending to each other. But they're able to look at each other with achdus and with humility and say, you know what? We both are looking for the same God, and because we're both looking for the same God, we all want the same things, that one God must be bigger than both of us. And that roof that then is able to encompass that entire space with all of its divisions, that's a yichud. That's a real yichud. So let's go back. So the secret of Pesach, the Nekuda Penimiyus, is not. So the Yontiv of Pesach. Let's define it for ourselves like this. The Yontiv of Pesach is about echad miyudeya Echad Elokeinu shel Shamayim v'aretz. The whole inyan of Pesach is moving away from Parai, which is many gods. Parai, which is Lihai Arvanisiv, I'm this guy, I'm in control of this. And the whole inyan of Pesach is Emunah. That's the whole inyan of Pesach. And what does Emunah mean? Emunah means Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad. Echad. But what does it mean, Echad, really? The Penimiyus of Echad is not what type of environment. What does Echad mean? The deepest Echad is not just all there is one. Echad means that there are many different parts and many different conflicting pieces of our lives, both in terms of history and both in terms of our personal experiences in life. And Emunah, really, Hashem Echad means that with all those differences, the fact that it's Hashat Ha'achar, the fact that we talk Arengalas, and Hishan Labiseinu, in every single generation there's always enemies. You think of it like, what are we talking about in Pesach? Like the whole Pesach is about Hashem being in charge. Why are you bringing up like dirty laundry now? Like why are you mentioning Avodah Zarah? Why are you mentioning the fact that it's Galus? Like just like why are you bringing up that conflict? The answer is because we're trying to point out it's not so one. The life is full of many different puzzle pieces. And it's not just like Stam, just a perfect picture, everyone has the same nose. It's not like that. There's many different elements to life. There's many different elements to Jewish history. There's a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And Afal Pekin, we're saying, Echad Elokeinu shel Shamayim v'aretz. That's Echad. That's Emunah. That's what it means, a home. Hashor Seshchin on the home means that it's talking not the same. Things are not the same. This room is like this. This room is like that. The Mizrach wall is in the Mizrach, and this Meir wall is in the Meir. And it's not the same. They're not trying to make each other the same to each other. But Afal Pekin, Echad Elokeinu shel Shamayim v'aretz. This is what happened by the Mishkan, by the way. By the Mishkan, so I mentioned in the beginning, we said that there's the 12 Nesiim brought Karbanos. What's amazing is, take a look at Maramuk number 8. So the Medrash in Parashas Nasai makes a point. When you go through Parashas Nasai, the 12 Karbanos of the Nesiim, they're all the same, right? Nachshon, Baminadav, Shevet Yehuda, Reuven, they're all the same Karbanos, right? That's the Karbanos of the Nesiim, all the same. Says the Medrash, Rabbanan Amri, but the Rabbanan say in the Medrash, Afal Pisha Karban Shav Hikrivu, even though on the outside, in other words, it was all the same karbanis, literally it was the same measurements and the whole thing. But kulam al dvarim hikrivu, but they all brought it for different reasons. So it's an amazing thing. They all were sitting in their own room, meditating about what carbon their shevet should bring. And they all had their own individual cheshbainis, and they all came to the same conclusion. But again, so each one is bringing the particular carbon with absolutely a different kavana, but yet it's the same carbon. That is the secret of Achdus. The secret of Achdus is not that we're all just on the same page and everything. No, there are differences. There's Reuven, and there's Shimon, and there's Levi, and there's Taka differences. There's differences. But there's a Yichud, there's an Achdus that is somehow able to surface from all of that difference, and that Yichud that surfaces from those differences is a much deeper Yichud than a Yichud that would just be when everything is vanilla, or just everything is chocolate. That's a much deeper Yichud when it's able to a unifying force amongst differences. And that's exactly what the Mishkan was. This is what it means when the Ramban said to return to the mile of her ovis, that the Rabbanei Shalom's presence was on their home. It was on because again, that's what a home means. It means a place of difference, and nevertheless a place of yichud at the same time, a yichud that comes from differences. And that's exactly what the ovis were, right? Avram is like this, Yitzchak is like that, and Yaakov is like that, and nevertheless they're all ovis. They're all ovis. That's exactly what Achdus was about. So this is the Nakuda. So let's get down to simplicity. So what's the Nakuda Pesach? The Nakuda Pesach is Echad, Hashem Echad. It's Emunah. We're being reintroduced to Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. That's what Pesach is about. We're moving from Mitzrayim, which is a place, like I mentioned this the other night, that the word Mitzrayim equals Begematria Mispar, equals Begematria number. Number means many. All of a sudden, when I say the word one means there's going to be two. Right? So already Mispar means many. We come to Mitzrayim with numbers. We're counted and so on, the 70 souls, and a lot of numbers, right? But you know what Pesach is about? Pesach is moving Yitzias Mitzrayim, moving away from that place of just thinking things in conflict, but unifying those things and finding Achdus amongst the many. So let's go back to how we started. This Nakuda of Pesach, which is the unifying aspect of Pesach with the Mishkan, right? Hashar Seshchin on the home, a place of Machlokes, of division, of differences, but yet nevertheless a oneness encompassing all those differences. This somehow makes the Yontif of Pesach a Yontif that's celebrated through the month of Nisan, right? That's what we started with. That the month of Nisan is an entire month that's Pesach-dik, because most of the month is contained, has Pesach in the Mishkan. the celebration. So the whole month is redefined by that. So what does this have to do with the Yontif being a month-thick Yontif? So here's the idea. I left the most esoteric for the last 2 minutes, but here's the idea. According to Rashash, according to Mekubalim, we experience time that, okay, like there's Sunday, today's Sunday, tomorrow's going to be Monday, and we're all in the same space, right? There's Hashem, we should be in Yerushalayim, but you understand, like we're in the same universe, the same planet Earth that we occupy on Sundays, the same planet we occupy on Monday. By the Mekubalim, that's not true at all. It's not true at all. It seems like that to the naked eye, but it's not really true. There's a universe that is Sunday, and there's a universe that's called Monday. There's a universe that's called Tuesday. These are different spaces. These are different places that we enter into. Shachris on Sunday is not the same Shachris as Monday. So here's the idea. The idea is that every single day's Avodah is that universe of that particular day. 1 out of 365. There's like, if you think about it by year, it's like there are 365 universes that we travel throughout the course of a year. And Sunday's Avodah is to fix this universe of that day. 1 out of 365. And Monday is another 1 out of 365, and that's how we go. What's Yontif? So Yontif is altogether something different. Yontif, by the Arizal and the Rashash explain that what Yontif is Yontif is moving in, is instead of there being 365 little universes that are like sort of next to each other, Yontif means all there is one big universe. One big universe. One big universe. So it's, let's put it this way. An entire year's Avodah, you can think of a year needs a certain amount of work. A year is like a construction site. It's like, you need to build. So there's 2 different ways how to build a year. You could build a year, 365 different slots. And that's the normal way how we go through a year, a space of a year, a universe that's called a year. A normal time, the normal schedule, the normal program is 365 mini worlds within that world that's called Tavshin Pei Gimel. That's called the regular system of the weekdays. Shabbos also, but the non-Yontif timeline. But then you have a different timeline that's called Yontif. What's the timeline of Yontif? The timeline of Yontif is that it might seem to us, it might feel to us like one day or a couple days out of the year, but no. That universe that we enter into on Yontif is the entire Tavshin Pei Gimel in one big universe. So the Avodah, so any year, there's like 2 dimensions to the year. There's the year as it exists in 365 different pieces, and then there's the year as it's just one huge construction site. And Yontif is us engaging in that year on a huge klalistic level. Comes Pesach, and Pesach is also a Yontif. And Pesach is a Yontif that is engaging in Tavshin Pei Gimel this year as one big collective construction site. But because we just explained that the secret of Pesach is what? Is an achdus, is a oneness. But a oneness that comes, and a deep oneness that comes out of many parts being unified. So the year of Tavshin Pei Gimel that we engage in, that big construction site that is called Pesach, is different than any of the Yontif. Every other Yontif is extreme. Either you're in the program of the regular days of the year, which is 365 different slots, or you're Yontif, and then it's just one big, huge Avodah. A year is just one big construction site. Pesach is, it's one big construction site, but I recognize that this construction site is made of months. See that? What is a month? A month is also a time period that's bigger than just a particular day. And a month means this is 1 month out of an entire year. But it's recognizing a year as being made of different parts. So this is why by Pesach, what's the first mitzvah we were given by Pesach night? To sanctify the month. What is a month? A month means that there's a Tavshin Pei Gimel. It's one big year. It's one big construction site. But Pesach recognizes the puzzle pieces that are necessary to create that one big space. See, so in other words, what we have are 3 different types of dimensions. You have the dimension of a year that is basically the regular the regular weeks, which are every single day. It's its own little universe. Sunday he doesn't know what Monday is talking about. Monday, every single just little pieces, little universe. Fine. And then you have like Sukkot, and you have Rosh Hashanah, you have Chanukah and Purim, which are it's just one big yichud, one big achdus. But then Pesach comes and says, 1 second. Pesach comes and says, yes, it's achdus, it's one thing. So it's going to be the avodah of Pesach is a year avodah. It's a year avodah. It's building the construction site of an entire year. But that oneness is a oneness that comes out of many pieces. It's a oneness that recognizes itself as being a conglomerate of 12 individual pieces of months. And so therefore, Dafka, the month of the Yontif of Pesach is a Yontif that acknowledges the fact that this is a year that's made of different months. So therefore, Dafka Pesach is a Yontif that is a Nisan celebration. It's a month celebration because it recognizes the fact that this oneness that it's now bringing us into, Tavshin Pei Gimel as one big entity, is an entity that's also made of different parts. It's not allowing us to be thrown into the mamish, the conflict of 365 different days. But it is acknowledging the fact that this is an achdus that's able to encompass and bring together the 12 different months of the year. So Dafka Pesach is a month that acknowledges that despite the fact that it's just like every other yontif, which is an avodah of an entire year, Tavshin Pei Gimel, contained in those 7-8 days. But it's those 7-8 days that also recognize that Tavshin Pei Gimel is made of 12 different parts, called months. And so it's an achdus that's unifying Pulas HaMishtanis. It's unifying different qualities and different puzzle pieces that come together to create this yichud. So let's go back. So it's Dafka Pesach, and then the Nekuda Pesach, which is an Echad, a Yichud, an Emunah, Hashem Echad, that is not ignoring the multiplicity. It's not ignoring the conflict, not ignoring the many different puzzle pieces. Adarabah, it's an echad that emerges out of those puzzle pieces, and that's why Pesach is deeply connected to the building of the Mishkan, which is Hashem Yisbarach dwelling on a home, and a home is the same idea, which is an acknowledgement of different people in different places and different inyanim, but nevertheless an achdus that's emerging out of those differences. So Dafka Pesach with the Akamas and Mishkan come together to tell you that the month of Nisan is altogether a Pesach Dikim month. I thought the whole yontif of a yontif is seeing the whole year as one big entity, ignoring the different pieces that come together to make a year, namely a month. The answer is no. The whole yontif of Pesach is not like that. Every yontif is like that. Pesach is not. Pesach is an echad that acknowledges the fact that to get to this echad, you needed 12 different types of pieces, and you need the concept of a month, which is a fragment and a piece of something that's different than Kislev, and different than Shvat, and different than Adar. And that concept of a month is what allows you to then experience the yichud of Pesach itself. So Pesach is a yontif that even though the fact that on Pesach we are in this bigger space that's called Tavshin Pei Gimel altogether, and we're not being thrown into those Machlokes, mamish Machlokes called Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But it's an echad of Pesach. It's a yichud of that entire year that acknowledges the fact that it's an echad that emerges out of different pieces that work together with each other. That each month is a piece of something altogether bigger, which is called a year, and that's the secret of Pesach. Halach l'maisa. So halach l'maisa, what emerges out of this is that the nekuda opinions of Pesach is that there's a goat and there's a cat and there's a dog and there's a lot of different things, but it's chad gadi at the end. There's 1 and there's 2 and there's 3 and there's 4. There's all the way to 13, but there's 1 at the end. There's 1 at the end. And there's Golas, and there's Geula, and there's ups, and there's downs, and there's this person, there's that person, there's this month, and there's that month, and there's this month, and there's that month. But all those months, not only are they not ultimately different, not only do they ultimately fight with each other forever, through all these differences, we could emerge with a much deeper definition, a much deeper understanding of Echad Elokeinu Asher Shamayim v'Aretz. That's what Yontif of Pesach is. And again, like I said, that's what Yontif of Pesach is. A Yontif that acknowledges the fact that it's just like every other Yontif. It's a Yontif that's building the entirety of the year, but it recognizes that a year is built of months. So it recognizes the necessity of different puzzle pieces to come together to build that one entity that's called a month, without getting completely lost in the Machlokes. Without getting lost in that, and seeing the achdus that comes out of Pulas HaMishtanis. Okay, but should be zeicha. That's what it's Yichud means. Again, that's the idea of extending the month, so that we should be zeicha to experience that yichud on all levels. VS Code 7.